Greetings and salutations, and welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight, our first episode of our second season. But before we begin, as usual, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, even if it's just to say hi, and share this video with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. My guest today served as the executive director of the Dramatists Guild of America for the past decade. Prior to his work at the Guild, he filled the post of artistic director, producer, and full-time faculty member in the Goldberg Department of Dramatic Writing at NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, where he produced more than 45 different festivals of new work, collaborating with hundreds of playwrights, directors, and actors. He is on the Tony Administration Committee for the Tony Awards and the program director for the Summer Playwriting Intensive for the Kennedy Center. He's the author of the critically acclaimed The Playwrights Survival Guide, Keeping the Drama in Your Work and Out of Your Life, Perfect 10, Writing and Producing the 10-Minute Play, A More Perfect 10, and 2 volumes of monologues for men by men. His plays include Too Quick to Pick, Ties That Bind, Skirting the Issue, Caught Without Candy, Game On, Verticals and Horizontals, Patting the Wagon, Rug Store Cowboy, Oh Messiah Me, The Big Fat Naked Truth, Scream with Laughter, Smoothness with Cool, and When a Diva Dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gary Garrison.
Hi.
How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you? Thank you.
That's
quite an intro.
Yeah, well, it's a
quite. I wish I knew that person, but
it's quite a resume. We're going to do this again, and hopefully we don't have any issues since we had a great conversation the last time, but unfortunately, yeah, I had some audio issues on my end, so I think we got those things fixed. Now I'm kind of intrigued now because let's start with the original question we started with last time, and that is, where did you get your start? How did you? What's your background in playwriting? How did you start? Did you study it?
I did. I mean, I started off as an actor, and I did that for many years, many years, and that's what I thought I was going to do. Actually, was be an actor, and then I went into directing and went to school for that and got a master's in that, and then continued to do summer stock in the summer of that. The University of Michigan hired me in their equity company because they had an equity company associated with their theater program. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that summer, they asked if I'd like to be a part of the company, but it would mean I'd have to be back in school. And I was like, sure. Okay. So that's where I started studying playwriting. So that's how it happened. I started studying playwriting because I was foolishly one of those guys that sat in the class and watched other people do it and said, I can do that. I think I can do that. I think I can do it better. You know
Yeah. Did you do it better right off the bat, or did it take you some time?
You know what? That is a really good question, sir. You know, if according to the world's definition, I did good almost instantly, quickly, because I wrote a play and it got a lot of recognition and awards, whatever those things mean and you know, when you're a kid, they mean a lot. So I guess in that regard, what I would say is that I discovered I was maybe on the right track. Okay. Not that I was a good playwright or a bad playwright or whatever, but I was definitely on a track that I probably should, pursue.
Were there things that you realized you were doing incorrectly? I'm sure there's a better word than incorrectly.
As a writer,
or yes, and any bad habits that you personally had.
Oh yeah, I still have them. Yeah, I had a playwriting teacher who I was talking to somebody about the other day, who it turns out had the same teacher. We didn't know this, and we both discovered we had a common PTSD about it, because this person was smart as a whip and so talented and probably abusive, maybe a little abusive, emotionally abusive in how they taught. And we toughed it out. We got through it, right? But it's, that's not fun. But anyway, I know what I can do is structure a play really well, because that's what he taught me to do. And I know that I can create character because, again, that's what he taught me to do. And so what I struggle with all the time, and everybody does, is writing. I like to have written. but I don't know that I like to write so much. So, I mean, I like the act of having done it, but
Sure.
there's that struggle of getting to the computer and, just doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we avoid it like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, it's hard.
So,
It's so hard.
so
The interesting thing is it's so hard and it's such a, fucking struggle to do. And yet there's nothing like it. I know you know this yourself, James, when you get into the zone, whatever that means to you, on whatever level that means to you, there is no thing like it. Nothing that I know.
so
Yeah.
So how do you solve that? How do you, Gary, force yourself to sit down and write? What's the trick?
You're very good at this. You should try your hand at a podcast sometime. Anyway, you know what? I don't have a trick, but I'll tell you what happens. I mean, this is honest to God what happens. Something will happen in the news that will make me, nuts. And I have to go do that because I can't sit with it, because I have to figure it out for myself. I have to figure, there was one of my 10 minutes plays is a play called Gawk, Gawk, like you're gawking at somebody. And it came from, I was watching the news one night and it came from a news segment wherein they stuck a microphone in an African-American woman's face that was probably 65, 70 years old in Chicago and said, so what did it feel like when your grandson was shot? And let me understand this. Your son was shot as well and killed on the streets, correct? This is exactly how they did it. So this woman has to kind of answer for her son being shot dead and her grandson being shot dead in front of a microphone in that moment. And I'm like, what are you? Oh. So I had two reactions. One, that she was being put on the spot, but more importantly, what world are we living in which a woman loses her son and her grandson from street violence? Look, I know it happens. I'm not naive, but to see this extraordinary woman and to see her trying to explain this was, heartbreaking. Anyway, I had to go write about that. So that's what I'm saying. To answer your question, James, something will happen in the world. I'll read something and I'm like, okay, yeah, I got to go figure that out. Or else I'm going to tear a tree down, bark by piece of bark by piece of bark, because it just makes me so crazy or angry or sad or whatever.
So I mean, basically, for the most part, it's a form of catharsis for you.
It is. It really is. I mean, look, I have issues in my life. I guess we all do. Every play is about me. I'm just telling you the truth, James.
Sure.
I mean, it's all about me. It's about, so in that particular play, there is scattered, overthinking, overly sympathetic white woman that comes to her house. Do you know what I mean? And that's me. I'm just like floundering and flustered and I just want to help and I can. And so right. It's a woman. She's in her 60s or 70s, but herself. But it's all me. So anyway, yes, to answer your question.
So I want to go back then, because the thing that you said that it's what you were taught. So can we talk about structure and can we talk about character? So let's, what makes, well, you're one of the foremost experts on 10-minute plays. So how do you structure a 10-minute play opposed to a full length?
Well, the structure of a 10-minute play, let's just start with this. A 10-minute play has to have a structure of some kind. So a lot of people hear the word structure and the first thing they think of is linear structure, beginning, middle, and end. Oh, well, that is a structure. And it's a good one. I mean, God knows it's been used from the beginning of time. So, okay. I'm much more in favor in letting the story dictate. what the structure is. So maybe that's middle, end, beginning.
Mhm.
Starting in the middle of the play, get to the end of the play. How did we get there? Go to the beginning, for example.
Sure.
Or round 1, round 2, round 3, he's out. Structure it like a boxing match, or like dinner, like Carol Churchill often did. Not often. She didn't often use dinner, but she used different structures to tell her stories, and dinner being one of them. The progression of a dinner. Anyway, so there's that, or there's the well-made play, a beginning and a middle and an end. Beginning where there's exposition, a point of attack, or the moment wherein we learn what the conflict is about, kind of an escalating dramatic action through the course of the middle of the play, a point of no return, a crisis, a climax, the denouement. That's all big talk for a beginning, a middle, and an end, basically. And it doesn't matter. And look, I just want to say real quick,
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
I hate when people talk about, I'm leery when people talk about structure, because it feels like what's being said is you should do it like this.
Mm.
And that, look, it's an art form. There's no should in an art form at all. So you do whatever you need to do. You tell your story. Tell your story.
Do you subscribe to a save the cat philosophy then, or do you just kind of dismiss that as far as like, in this regard, those moments have to happen on a certain page, or is that whole thing's out the window and just keep to that story?
Well, I'm fascinated about a save the cat philosophy. I don't know what a save the cat philosophy is.
It was
and we're going to jump in there.
I think it was, oh God, Blake, what, basically it's I have 2 copies of it. I can't even remember. Blake Snyder wrote a book called Save the Cat. It's for screenwriting. And basically it's like, by page 5, the incitingness incident has to happen. By these pages, you get your first act, you got the fun and games by these pages. This page, you better have this. It's like one of those formulaic things that all movies supposedly have.
Yeah. Well, interesting. You start off by, and I diverted away from it accidentally. You asked me about the 10-minute play. In fact, the 10-minute play does have a very recognizable structure, or it has a structure that is easily recognizable, is what I should say, because it's 10 minutes long.
Sure.
So there's a fourth of the play, or a fifth, and I don't know what that means page-wise. That's all exposition. It's just setting the play up, setting the world in motion, setting the conflict in motion. And then there is the bulk of the story, 5 pages, 6 pages, 7 minutes, 7 minutes. That is the story. Somebody wants something in a story and will either get it or not by the story's end. That's real basic. That's real primary. And then the last 2 pages, the last page, is about some sort of crisis that leads the protagonist into a climax, or the story into a climax. And then, the catharsis or denouement or whatever, whatever. See, again, I worry that people will hear this and go, I don't know what a denouement is.
Well, then what is it, so people can know?
Denouement is just simply life after. So it's the moments right after the climax of the play in which we get an indication of how life is going to be after. When Nora walks out the door in a doll's house and slams the door, in the original stage directions, Torvald is left on stage by himself. And I don't know it by heart, but something to the effect of he sits in silence for a good long moment. That indicates how life is going to be now that his wife has left him and will never come back. He will be in silence, alone, for a good long while. So that's just life after, right? Denouement. It's literally that long, just a heartbeat.
When you sit down to write a 10-minute play, do you keep that in mind as you write, or do you just go ahead and write however many pages it takes and then start trimming it back?
Oh, James, I wish I did. The truth of the matter is I don't. How do I know this? Because I'm often in the theater watching a play of mine. I'm like, well, for fuck's sake. Jesus Christ, what the hell happened? Come on, Gary, Jesus. Because I sell myself a bill of goods. I have a bit of arrogance to me. I've been teaching this forever. I've been writing equally forever, and I think I know how to do it. And then I do it, and then I'm like, oh shit, forgot to put a structure in there. You know why? Because you get all caught up in your own storytelling, and you're like, oh, such an interesting character. Such an interesting character. We'll hang on to that for 10, we'll hang on to that for 10 minutes. No, you don't. You hang on to it for 30 seconds or a minute, and then you're like, okay, TikTok, where's the conflict of the play? So I wish I could say I did, but I don't. I mean, I recognize that I have that issue, that I can write without structure, or that I can write without intent, or that I can write without any number of things. So I just write a first draft to answer your question. I just write a draft. Blah! And then after that, I'm like, okay, let's go. If this is a student of yours and you were reading this, what would you say about it? Oh, it doesn't have any conflict. Oh, there's that. Oh, it doesn't have any structure. Oh, well, okay. Let's go back and put that in. So that's what I have to do.
Are there pet peeves when you go and see work, whether it's yours or an evening of short plays that you find there's a pattern of that?
Yeah.
You think, why don't people know this yet? Or why do people keep making the same mistakes?
I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, but because that would never be my intention. But look, let's just get really clean about this once and for all. A play is a play, and a sketch is a sketch. A sketch evolves around a central conceit, right? The whole thing evolves around a central conceit. All of Saturday Night Live's sketches evolve around a central conceit. What if men got pregnant? Doesn't matter who the men are. It's the conceit that's funny, right? So, it's funny when you see an NFL football player pregnant. It's funny when you see, these kind of archetypal men pregnant. The President of the United States, right? An Army sergeant. Let's make them all pregnant. So we can just run that forever, because it's not about character growth. It's about the snapshot of an Army sergeant, masculine, macho, manly, all that stuff, being pregnant with child. So that can go on for 10 minutes, or that can go on for a minute. Doesn't matter, because you're not trying to develop a storyline. Plays have storylines. Plays have dimensional characters. Plays have some sort of dramatic conflict, something that is posed at the beginning of the story that is then answered at the end of the story by the story. Mm-hmm. So, will James find love? That's the question that's posed at the beginning of the 10-minute play. And at the end of the 10-minute play, he will either find love or not find love. That's simple. Boom. Or he will find this weird hybrid mix that is actually a choice that we just could not have ever conceived of, but the writer did. And it's fascinating, let's say, just for fun. So there it is. But we only appreciate that storyline if James is a person of dimension. What do I mean by that? If you stumble on a car wreck and see a car wreck, you can certainly go, oh gosh, that's terrible. The minute you find out there's a woman in that car wreck that is pregnant, the story takes on a different kind of meaning. The minute that you discover that the person that she hit was her sister coming from the other direction, and that her sister was inebriated, had been drinking, that story becomes more interesting. The minute that you discover that one of them is dead and you don't know which one it's going to be, the story becomes even more interesting. We just spend that till the cows come home. And all we're doing is we're just adding dimensionality to the story. That's all.
So how do you remember to, is it just building a habit of finding ways to raise the stakes and keeping that in mind rather than, I mean, it goes back to the conversation we had last time. It's like, why write a play with two strangers?
Right.
Opposed to people that know each other.
Yeah. Well, I think either can work, honestly, but in a 10-minute play, particularly, writing two strangers is tough because they can only get to know each other so much in such a short amount of time.
Sure.
So they often don't. They often don't get to know each other. They often just focus on the dramatic action at hand. So, but here's what I would say to you. It's this, James. It's kind of the great elevator play. And that elevator play is this. The great elevator play, the story is the elevator goes up, it goes down, stalls, it crashes. That's kind of what's going to happen in an elevator. Not much more. Unless it's an absurdist play and it takes off through the roof, let's say, for fun. So it is never going to be about the elevator, ever, ever. It is what? It is the people in the elevator. There's the story. So, and all we have to do is trade the people out to know how the story changes. So if you're in there, I'm in there, my best friend, your best friend, and our parents, that's one story. If we just take a set of those people out and we add Trump and we add Pelosi, story changes dramatically. All we did was just substitute two people. So how does Pelosi or Trump react to a crowded elevator in with their nemesis stuck? Yeah, just change the people out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because now that you brought this up as far as the elevator play goes, and I want to say that you touch on it in one of your books is in regards to the cafe play or the park bench play.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like an evening of that? Like we had a theater around the corner from us that used to do that all the time. They had the park plays, and it was 10 scenes that happened on that park bench. No real scene changes.
Yeah, isn't that fun? No. It's okay, I don't want to. Okay. So here's what would make this really interesting, because I don't know that I want to go to an evening of theater of 10 scenes on a park bench, but if I were to, what would make it really interesting to me is if the writers actually embraced what it means to be in a park. And what I mean by that is that it's actually understanding what makes theater theater. So that even though you are going to write a scene in a park bench, excuse me, on a park bench, that there is sound that is incorporated because there is sound in a park. There's the plane, there's the ambulance, there are kids playing, there's a basketball being lobbed against a hoop. There's a gunshot, there is traffic, there are people walking and talking, there's a couple fucking. I mean, I don't know, whatever it happens to be, there are sounds, right? Then there is light. So, how does it start? How does it end? What are we in broad daylight? Are we in dusk? Are we at dawn? All those things affect what happens on that park bench. Right. I would think. If you are breaking up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your significant other person, and it is high noon on a 98-degree day, and you're on a park bench in the middle of a park with no tree around, what does that do?
Right.
I would think that would actually put a little bit of, pressure cooker on it.
Sure.
So, or better said, if you're trying to have a reasonable conversation with your person and, ambulances keep going by or sirens, something is on fire. What does that say about your story?
Right.
Something needs help. What does that say about your story? Somebody needs help. Somebody is being rescued. What does that say about your story? So how might we use that? Part of the problem, of course, is that we're trying to be frugal. So we're putting 2 people on a park bench so we don't have to put anybody else in the world. Well, the truth of the matter is, in a park, unless you're sequestered away somewhere, which is possible, but write that. But if you don't, you actually have to write other people. Or you have to write why other people are not around. You just have to write the reality of the world that you're living in.
Sure.
That's it.
You mentioned character earlier, and that you're very good at that as well. So, talk about character. How do you develop character? Where do you start? Do you actually write out your character description, or you let your characters kind of tell you who they are?
You know, I'm a lazy ass. I just have to be honest with you, James. I
got a whole list of plays that play titles, and then I think 4 books right there. I'm not quite sure I'm going to buy that, but keep going.
I don't outline. I don't character. What? No. Just write the damn play. Now, that said, I know, as I said earlier to you, that there has to be a certain dimensionality in those people. So I can't write them at one dimension, or, I have to really have to keep their complexity in mind, even if it's only for 10 minutes. Even if, there's a play I wrote. This actually happened to me. I went out on a first date with somebody who showed up with a lottery ticket. As you know, I know they meant well.
Oh, for you?
For me.
Oh.
And the date did not go so well. I just want to say, it came out in the first 10 minutes. That lottery ticket came out in the first 10 minutes. And then as the date went on, I'm like, oh, yeah, if I never speak to this. Okay, here we go. Gotta try my hardest. So anyway, I went, and then at some point I just thought, this is just no. So I said, I'm just going to be a big boy here and say, I don't think I'm the one for you. And, but I wish you so much goodness and all great things. And I hope you find somebody you're looking for, but I don't think this is going to be us. So why don't we just be adults and shake hands? And they weren't having it, not having it at all. They did not like this on my part. This was not. Anyway, long story short, they left. But as they were leaving, they said, it was a guy. So I don't know why I'm saying they. When he left, he said, well, if you win the lotto, that's going to be awkward, isn't it? And I fucking won $500.
Did you really?
Yeah. So
that became the play winning ticket.
That became a play. And I wrote this. The whole point in telling you this story, I'm sorry, is that I wrote this guy, not the one I went on the date with, but somebody that would be as objectionable. And I thought, well, it's easy to not like somebody like that, right? I can write somebody that's unlikable. Try to write somebody who's likable and unlikable. Try to write the goodness of him. Writing the badness of him is easy. I can do any number of things to make me not like him. His because he was Republican. God, what are you doing? But okay. But all right. But anyway, so I can write all that stuff, but then I need to find his heart, because that makes up for a compelling character, right? That when you find their heart, when you fall in love with your villains, when you fall in love with people that you ordinarily would, be 10 feet from, now you've accomplished something, because you've shown their humanity. Because there are very few people in this world that are evil, pure evil. So anyway, yeah.
What
did I answer your question?
developing character, complex character.
Yep.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's good because I think that's, we forget these little things that we could be working on. And that's
Yeah.
why I enjoy these talks, because there's those little tidbits that we may not recognize, we may not realize. And so
Yeah.
these little tidbits are just great pieces of advice. It's like almost every playwright that has come on, it's like they've written their own little 90-minute book about
Yeah.
playwriting. And so everybody's got their own take on it. And I'm hoping that, each one of these talks resonates with somebody, so yeah, absolutely. So what is there?
Can I I'm sorry,
Yeah.
just very quickly and say, because I do want to put a button on this. Write your characters beyond the situation that they're in. So the easy way to do it is to only write this person inside this situation. But what is their level of education? What's their moral code? What are their values and beliefs? What's their relationship in the family? What else can we know about them that relates to the story in a direct or indirect way? How can we make them fuller? Right? So they're not just a person trying to fall in love. They're a person that has a history of never being in love. They're a person that has a history of being, that maybe has, an illness of some kind that has affected how they maneuver through life. So the more that we can kind of layer into them, the better off we are.
So how do you do that in a 10-minute play, though?
Yeah.
And then how do you make it because I'll give notes when I do the workshops in some of the festivals that I work. And this is like, how do you make it not be information that's really irrelevant to the story? It's like, you don't need that in there because it doesn't affect anything.
Yeah.
So at what point is it adding complexity opposed to unnecessary information? Or how do you achieve that in a 10-minute play?
It's a really good question. It's trial and error. But if you're writing a character that, I wrote a story about a guy who, one of my most produced 10-minute plays is a story of a guy who attracts lightning. So
I love that play.
Yeah, and he's been struck by lightning, he's struck by it twice, but he's also has a history of just bad weather following him everywhere. And the play is the day in which his daughters ask him not to come to her wedding that's outside because she's afraid that he's going to bring bad weather, which he does. Anyway, his wife is the one that comes out to talk to him about this. And she's had cancer. So in talking to him, he's very quick to say, "Oh, look at me. This happens. All this weather, it's me. It's all on me. It's me." And she goes, "Oh, what? Come on. Look in front of you. It's okay." So there's an instance where her illness plays into the story.
Got it.
Because her illness is saying, we all have issues. We all have problems. We're all here. We're here to help one another. Anyway, you see what I'm saying?
No, it is. No, so it's not so much that maybe that's my note to myself. It's not get rid of this. It's distracting. It's a distraction. It has nothing to do with the story. It maybe unpack this and have it apply to the story.
That's right.
So
That's
okay. Now that's on me then. Look at
I
that.
like
I learned something new today.
I like that though. I mean, it's your responsibility to unpack it. That's right. Yeah. That's right. And make it integrated into the story whole.
What can traditional full-length playwrights learn from a 10-minute play?
Oh. I think they can learn,
or vice versa.
Well, I'm of the belief that to write a 10-minute play, you have all the component parts of a full-length play in a 10-minute play. And that your skill is to condense that, is to pare that down in 10 minutes. You don't write a full-length play and then pare it down to 10 minutes. You write the essence, the journey of a full-length play in 10 minutes. So conversely, if you're a full-length playwright, if you write full-length plays, You can learn a lot by writing that 10-minute play because you have to learn its component parts and be sound with your choices, just like you would in a full-length play. They're hard. Look, I not to make overstate it. I just find them to be really hard, difficult, and that's why most of us don't, write a lot of crap before we write a good one. God knows I have.
Well, I think we all have, we got to start somewhere. I mean, I'm sure that we don't have, and I think I mentioned this last time, I don't think we've seen all of Shakespeare's work, the work that didn't make it out. And even the few that were weren't the best, they're still out there. But, so how do you create interesting dialogue?
Yeah. Well, first by acknowledging that no two people on this planet speak the same. Let's just start there. You and I don't speak the same, James. We speak the same language, but we don't use it the same way. I don't know what your education background is, but yours is different than mine. Where you grew up is different than where I grew up. Your place in your family is different than my place in my family, I'm sure. How you approach your masculinity is different than how I approach my masculinity. Where do you fit in the kind of femininity scale? Where does that fit into your, I can just go on and on and on. These are things that influence our language, our religion. Oh, God, have mercy, Lord, please, God. It's in the South. It's just, you can't extract religion out of the Southern vernacular if your life depended on it. And probably it would. So you would have to, you just would have to, I don't even know what that means, but I kind of like the thought of it.
Sounds good.
God have mercy. Anyway, you understand what I mean. So, part of creating good language is to recognize that many, many things influence language, like education, like religion, like politics. My brother was, for lack of a better phrase or better description, a pipeline architect, just meaning that if you were building a building, my brother would design the pipes inside. This is very specific. My brother would design the pipes and how they were built inside the building, how they were laid out, as it relates to the kind of superstructure of the building. So when I would talk to him, he would say, I said, how's your day, bub? And he'd be like, oh, well, man, I had to do a KG 21010. And that just, I don't know, man, I hate that. I hate those KGs. What? Okay. KGG? Okay. And he would talk to me like I knew what a KGG 2210 is. And I was I'm always fascinated by it, right? God damn, he'd say, I don't understand why. My supervisor comes in and goes, Mike, when you get on that program and you do that alter space has got to be between the juxtaposition, and I'm lost. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. I find it fascinating because he brings his work. Clearly, his work has a set of terms and language that comes into his language. You know this whenever you hear people who work in the software industry or the whatever say, yeah, let's sit and download about what happened last night. What? Okay, let's go download that. These things find their way into our language. That's all I'm saying. You create interesting language through many, many things.
I guess how do you apply that? Mm-hmm. You just kind of keep it in the back of your mind, or you just like go through and say, okay, well, I've written this, they kind of all sound the same, but how can I make this person sound different? Do I go grab the thesaurus, or I don't, just curious.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There it is, right? How do you do it? You do it by, this is the hard part about writing, James. Writers need to pay attention to people. We write people maneuvering through space. We write people in conflict. We write people trapped. We write people dreaming. We write whatever. That implies that you understand people.
Hmm.
That implies that you study people. So how do you do it? You study people. You start paying attention. You start looking at them. You start watching them. You start imagining why somebody behaves these ways under pressure. You won't have an absolute answer because you're not them, but you will begin to imagine or conjecture or to understand or to research or to find out why they behave a certain way. So you have to train your ear, you have to train your eye, you have to train your mind to how people are in space.
Going with behavior,
Mm-hmm.
should behavior be in your character descriptions, or should you let that be discovered through the dialogue on the page?
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this the last time, and I just want to say I completely agreed with you. And I don't think I articulated that, but I'm going to now. The shorter, the better. Let's just get to it. Put it in the writing.
So what should be in the character descriptions?
Certainly I think you need to come up with a age, and I don't think it's 40s, because that's like sort of gay, kind of gay. It's like gay or not.
Right.
42, 51. And for a reason. They're in their early 40s because they wouldn't have had time to, well, I don't know what it is. You figure it out. You're the writer. Figure it out. Do some homework. Okay. First off, so a very specific age. Their gender, particularly in this day and age, as we've evolved, we need to reflect that understanding in our gender assignments and in our, male, female, they, them, non-binary, whatever it happens to be. Just state it, specify it. Race, I think, has to be acknowledged in what you've created. Can be any race. You can say that. Latinx or Asian American or Native American, whatever. Say it. Also, because we're living in the world that we're living in, and understandably so, reasonably so, write your understanding on that page. If it is my desire as the writer, or however you want to phrase this, that these people be this.
Mm-hmm.
I am also okay with these characters being this. Or I only want this. Can't do it. If you can't find it, can't do it. Whatever. Just say it. No hard feelings, no misunderstandings. Let's just get it out on the paper. And then I'm sorry, and then to finish your question,
you're good.
Yeah, a bit of just a very brief description. Energetic, lost, running from someone. Boom, there it is. I don't want to know much more than that.
So man or woman or Mary and George? I just see plays where it's just man, woman.
Yeah, what is that?
Or I would just even a name I think says a little bit more. So
yeah.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Or does it really matter?
Oh, I do. Of course it matters. I mean, it's the same thing when you see a writer write a play and they say Untitled, and I'm like, really? You can't come up with anything, even if you're going to change it 5 days from now. Come up with something.
Well, that was my next question for you as well. How do you come up? Because after I was reading these, I'm like, these are quite clever titles. How do you come up with your titles?
How do it's somewhere in my play. It's somewhere in the play. It's some, well, that's just not very helpful. Let me think. Of course
Like,
it's a
all
play.
right,
It's
so
not.
like patting the wagon, rug Store Cowboy, oh Messiah me.
Yeah. So, Oh Messiah Me is about a man who fantasizes that he's Jesus Christ every year at Christmas. So every year at Christmas, for about 5 days leading up to Christmas, he starts, he wears a crown. He starts painting the inside of his hands. This is one messed up man. Fascinating, I think. Anyway, he's long suffering in the play. He's just long suffering. So, and probably insufferable. But anyway, he is the notion of Oh Messiah Me is like, oh me, oh my God, it's just so hard being the Messiah. So, Oh Messiah Me is kind of what I have in my mind. For example,
yeah, because Daydream Jesus doesn't really work in my opinion.
So there was a guy. I wrote a play about a guy who's a car repairman, a mechanic, who gets a call to say, "Come pick up your son at school." And when he presses to know why, it's because his son showed up at school wearing a skirt. So the guy goes to school to pick his son up, and he arrives wearing a skirt. And he says, "I'll take my son from your school, but he will be here tomorrow with whatever he wants to wear. And if that's a skirt, we're going to have trouble." Anyway, so the play is about this man who wants to normalize whatever is going on for his son. And it's called Skirting the Issue because he's wearing a skirt. There are a lot of issues around there. They don't want to talk about them because it's uncomfortable. So there it is. So I just think you take your cue from the play. I do know this, James. I think there has to be an active phrase in there somewhere. Skirting the issue. When a diva dreams. Like if there's something active about it. When a diva dreams, what? So yeah.
All right. What's one of your favorite exercises to give your students?
It's an easy exercise, and this is for anybody who needs to understand what dramatic action is or how to write a play in which something happens. You say, create a play with 2 characters, whatever you want to write about, but there is something in the play in which time is running out. However you want to perceive that. Literally, time is running out. Figuratively, metaphorically, time's running out. Because, James, they have to write something that's active. If time is running out, somebody wants something, and time is going to fail them shortly. So it's a great exercise for people to write and understand, how do I make something active? Oh, when time is running out, I'm going to try this. That doesn't work. Oh, I'm going to try this. That doesn't work. Now I'm going to try this. Now that doesn't work. Play is over.
Do all characters need to want something?
Yeah. Well, it'd be better if they did, right? So if you, notice how quick I was with that. Yeah. Because I think if I'm a producer of your play and you write a pizza person in the play, let's just say a pizza girl, pizza delivery girl or a woman, and she comes to the door, she can just say pizza. Off she goes. And I'm going to tell you to cut it because I can't pay for that actor. But if at the core, the story is something about people who need attention, people who demand or crave attention, people who are narcissists, let's just say. And this person shows up at the door needing to be the center of attention. Then maybe she does something when you open that door that a pizza person would never ordinarily do. that is of the moment, but also thematically threads into the rest of the play. So that when, as the producer, I come to you and say, you got to get rid of the pizza person, you can say, no, because thematically, metaphorically, poetically, whatever, that person is there to illustrate this. And if you extricate them out of the story, you're actually removing a bit of the spine.
Have you ever had, what's the most demanding or weirdest request that you've ever had of a piece that somebody was working on?
I was writing an Italian. I have written a man who was Italian from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and Bensonhurst is tough neighborhood, tough. It's that old Italian. It's that old, yeah. So this guy, I wrote this character, and this guy was playing this character, and he said, "Do you think that I could?" I mean, he just feels, he was confronting his wife about something, and he said to me, "Do you think when I'm confronting her, I could kind of maybe make some ape noises?" I'm like, "What?" It feels primal to me. It feels like I just want to ape. I just want to. You could have air pass through me. I think at that point, I had no weight. I was just knocked over. I was like, wow, I don't think I would have thought of that. So I said and he did it in front of everybody, right? So they're all looking for an answer. And I said, you know what? I would like to think about this, which is what we should all do. So give me to break, and then the director will come back and let you know what's up. So I said to the director, look, it's in his mind. Let him do it. Just see what happens. I mean, I don't want to see it. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but okay. Let him do it. And so he did it. And everybody on stage was like this. Frozen. Nobody could figure out was he having a psychotic break? Anyway, it's all to say he didn't do it until until the last week of performances. And then
How was that received?
Not well by me, I'll tell you that. I mean, I wasn't there, but I heard. And then I tried to, it just got messy because I was like, that shit needs to stop. So, I mean, I threatened to close it down, and I was like, oh, everybody's hard work. And I tried to understand it, and I spoke to him, and he was trenchant. So finally, I tried to do the only thing I knew to do, which was say, hey, look, bud, I appreciate your art. I so love actors. I'm the writer. No. That's the final word. No. Your director is also going to say, I'll tell you no. And then the director didn't.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. The director got all mousy. Bad. So I didn't have a lot to stand on. Anyway.
On that note, with weird requests, since we're on it, we talked about this a little bit last time. How do you feel about artistic statements, and are they necessary?
Yeah, I know, James, right? Everybody's like asking you to write these things.
Yeah, I just don't know what it has to do with the work.
Yeah.
You know, and it's I don't know, it's the accolades as well. Like when somebody sends me, an email about, here's the play, and here's a list of all these awards. I don't care about your awards. No offense. I mean, congratulations, but that's not the reason I'm choosing your play.
That's right.
I'm choosing your play because it fits in what the festival is and whether or not it's good. And I just think it's an unnecessary request on writers to do something else because it has nothing to do with their work.
Yeah, I'm maybe not the right person to ask this, only in that I don't understand it myself. I don't understand what they're for. I don't understand what people use them. I understand why though I don't like writing synopsis of a play, and nobody does really. I do understand what they're for. They're to give the reader an idea of what this play is going to be, what the journey of this play is going to be about. But to my mind, those should only be a paragraph long. That should not be anything longer than a paragraph, maybe two, I guess. I don't know. But I really don't understand the artistic vision mission thing, because for me, it changes play to play to play to play. And so, I remember somebody reviewed me once and they said, Mr. Garrison again is, or something like, Garrison again is returning to his exploration of family. And I'm like, what? Really? I'm like, am I? Oh, okay. Have I done it before? So like they clearly had an idea that I didn't have, or that I was aware of. So, yeah, I wouldn't know what to write, James. I have to be honest.
What should be in a submission letter?
Submission letter should say, hi, I saw your notice, wherever that happens to have been, online. The official Playwrights of Facebook, blah, 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 blah. Let them know where you saw it, so they know that their hard-earned energy and time paid off. I saw your call for submissions and blah, blah, blah. Enclosed, please find my play, the title, a one-line sentence about it, a romantic comedy set in the 1920s around the world of Prohibition. It's and I would do this very quickly again and more polished than I'm doing right now. It's a single set 4-character play that runs 90 minutes. Boom, done. I hope you enjoy it. I don't need this copy back, or please feel free to notify me if you have any whatever. I mean, so short as to just be short. That's what I do.
Do you read on the festivals that you've worked through, do you read every play from beginning to end? No matter how bad they are?
Boy, I really try to. This is going to sound like a crappy answer. I really try to. I will say this. If it's not happening by page 5 or 6, it's probably not going to happen in a 10-minute play, because we're already past so many things that should have happened. If the conflict is not apparent by page 5, it's lost by page 6. I'm not interested in your play. I've already checked out. So, it is the rare moment that I won't read the whole play. But to be frank with you, I've done it. I've not read a whole play, because so many things were not going on in the first 5, 6, 7 pages that I thought, well, the final 3 just can't wrap it up that easy. That said, I get to that point on page 7 or 8, and I'm like, well, it's just 2 more pages, man. Just push, go ahead. Just see where it comes out at least. I in all my time, and I'm 115 years old, I don't think I have ever gone, oh my God, there it is. What was I thinking? Gosh, I'm so glad. No, I'm like, I will never get that time back, ever. All right.
What is the biggest mistake you think that playwrights make when they submit their work?
You've heard this a million times, but I'll reiterate it, which is people don't pay attention to what they're submitting to. Don't send your fucking historical drama into something somebody's looking for a romantic comedy. That just does not make sense. That's just laziness on your part, and it makes me angry. It makes me angry it makes me angry. So if you're writing if you're entering a 10-minute play festival, make sure it's 10 minutes. That's the first prerequisite. 10 minutes, not 10 pages, 10 minutes.
Can you submit? What if it's shorter than 10 minutes?
Yeah, yeah, sure. That becomes a very slippery slope. Is 7 minutes a 10-minute play? Is 8 minutes a 10-minute play? Is 9 minutes a 10-minute play? Yeah, 10-minute play is probably 10 minutes or thereabouts. So maybe you could write. I don't know. I'm torn. I don't have anything particularly in my head. But if you've written an 8-minute play, come on, can't you?
Add two more minutes to that.
Can't you just add that? Is there a way to do that? I'm not so sure. But
can you leave a note at the beginning, a playwright's note? Act this out really, really elongate it.
2 minutes will be done by the acting.
Yes, exactly.
Oh Lord.
I'm accounting for scene changes for you. What? I forgot where I was going to go with this.
That's okay.
Because we're talking about the 10-minute play. I would be remiss if I didn't say this.
Yes. No matter what your question might be. I would be remiss if in our time together, I didn't say that there's probably no other time that I can think of in my years, and as we know, 115, that writers aren't, we desperately need to hear your stories, because there's so much going on in the world that, boy, I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand. So I'm relying on my people, my brothers, my sisters, my folks, my friends who write to say, hey, look, I have an idea about this. I think it may be about this, or I don't know. I don't know what it is, but God, dog, I mean, so much. I mean, oh my gosh. So, we have often turned to our writers, or writers have often been the mirror of what's going on in society, culture, to hold it back up to us and say, hey, look, this is, and man, so I'm all for promoting playwriting, saying, let's get it done. Yep.
How do you feel about directing your own work?
I think you're a director, aren't you, James?
Yes.
I would love for you to answer that question. I mean, I was a director for many years, and if I thought the play was finished, really finished, I would be, okay, I'll direct it. But, your primary responsibility is to be a writer. And if that story isn't tight, if that story isn't finished, if that story doesn't need development, if that story doesn't need clarity, if there aren't questions of text, you need to stay a writer. Just be a writer.
Because when in Play Noir, to go back to, because if we had any actors that were part of the part of the company that submitted anything, and there was no guarantee that they would get in, we did have two actors that did write. They were both great. We put it in, but there were the two rules that we did have: is you can't be in your own play and you can't direct it. Yeah. You have to be completely outside of it.
That's right.
I don't know if that's me just being strict and just, stubborn. Just to me, it just seemed like let it be what it is without your influence.
If I'm the writer, James, and if I'm the writer and the actor, and as I told you, I was an actor for years. I know how to make, this yourself. I know how to make a moment work that doesn't work on the page. So I'm going to gloss over that for the writer. I'm going to make that, because my ass is out there in front of an audience, not the writers. It's me. I'm going to make that work. So if you as an actor, you make it work, you've done a disservice to the writer, in a sense, because the writer is like, oh, that, yeah, just so beautifully plays so beautifully. Well, yeah, because you have a talented actor. So conversely, if you're the actor and you're jumping over all the parts you should have written, right? It's a problem.
Do you think that there's another position in theater that benefits a playwright more than than another? If you were like, okay, yeah, great, you're a playwright, but maybe go act for a little bit, maybe go direct for a little bit. What position do you think would benefit a playwright the most?
Director or director dramaturg. I mean, there are a lot of directors. The directors that I work well the most with are director dramaturgs. They're people who have extraordinary insight into play and play development, and they just know. I don't know where they get it from. They're just skilled that way. And boy, wow. So yeah, I mean, if you could do that, it'll probably help your writing tremendously.
What is a dramaturg? I think this is where we started last time, and we haven't gotten there yet since you just brought it up. What is it, and what's different between a director and a dramaturg?
Yeah. So a dramaturg, there are two types of, as I understand it, look, I'm not an authority on this, but the dramaturgs that I have worked with, there are two kinds. One is a research dramaturg. So if you're writing a play about hurricanes, they're going to go do all kinds of research about hurricanes, their impact, sociologically, economically, federally, statewide, whatever, and bring it to a discussion around the table with the actors and the director, and so that everyone has an insight into what this might be. So there's that kind of dramaturg, and then there's the kind of dramaturg that functions as somebody who asks you a series of questions. They're watching the rehearsal. They're asking you questions about the best dramaturgs ask you questions about what they're seeing, what they're maybe not clear about, what your intention is here in that moment. Is there another way of articulating that might be, like those kind of things? They're functioning as a not a script doctor, because they don't work on your script. They're functioning as an advisor. A director is responsible for the entirety of everything that we experience when we go to the theater. The lights, the sound, the acting, the acting, moving through space, text, and just everything. So I have enormous admiration for directors.
Are dramaturgs necessary?
I mean, there are some writers that would tell you no, and there are some writers would say I couldn't live without them. I don't mean that to bat that off, but I just think that it really depends. Writers are very distrusting, mistrusting of dramaturgs. My experience, because I feel like they think that their script is going to be taken away from them, or it's going to be rewritten for them, or if you've worked with a good dramaturg, you know that that's not the case. They don't do that. That's not, they're the first to admit they're not skilled enough to do that, or skilled enough.
What's the best piece of advice you'd give beginning playwrights or established playwrights, or any playwright?
Any playwright. Yeah,
not to put you on the spot.
No. Look, that's what this is for. We go to extraordinary lengths to figure out what would make a good play, I think. There's all this sweating and this thrashing about and this fretting and this, and all you ever need is actually inside you. You don't have to look much further than that. I think you are the play. I think you are the play time in and time and again. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that I am that guy that put on that skirt that go to get his little boy at school. That touches me so deeply, because I think, what kind of father is that? That's the kind of father I wanted to have. That's the kind of father we all should have. How do I make the world know that father is out there, and we should honor him and praise him for what he did, right? So there's that. How do I wrestle with this tremendous guilt and advantage of my privilege, and so that when this African-American woman, who's lost not one but two people in her lives to street violence. And I try to be compassionate. No, and I'm just sloppy about all of it. You know, how do I better myself? How do I better myself? But more importantly, how do I serve her? What can I do for her? So see, these are all about me. I mean, essentially, these are all about me. And if we go down the line about my play, if we go to every play that I ever wrote is about me in some form or fashion, because I'm the expert on me. I know me. I don't have to look so hard at other people. I know me. So I just have to write the honesty and truth of me and put them in, you know, in containers that make them accessible to other people. So if I have any success, it's that. So that, you know, that guy that tried to give me a lot of, you know, what that lotto ticket, for Christ's sake. And then I won, and then I had to call him because I couldn't just stand the thought that I won and not tell him. And, you know, of course he drove 45 miles to come get his half of it. You bet. Right? And that's all I need to know about that person. But anyway.
Where can people find your work?
You can go to my website for sure. It's so corny, right? It sounds so queer. So www.garygarrison.com. So you can go there. Certainly you can find some of it there. It's all over Amazon. It's all over original play publishing. It's maybe a little too many places. But here's what I would say. If you really want to read something of mine and you can't find it, or it's not easy or whatever, just write to me. My address is on my website. I'll send you something.
Can people find you on the socials?
Oh, yeah, obnoxiously so. So I'm all over Facebook. I'm on Facebook. It's where I rant and all my politics. It's just obnoxious. And then I'm at play at writing. At the @ sign and play at writing is my Twitter feed, is my Twitter name, feed, account, profile, whatever I want. I don't even know what they're called. Is my Twitter person, is my tweet, my Twitterer. And it's also through at Instagram. Insta.
Awesome.
My Insta.
As the kids are calling it nowadays.
James, I just want to say you do amazingly well at this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
You're welcome. I don't these are really good questions.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure it all out, you know, and make everybody a better writer.
Wow.
One episode at a time.
Really.
Which you're going to be the first episode of the second season. So it's coming up.
All right.
Gary, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad we didn't have any issues this time. So
yay!
Thanks for coming on to the Playwright Spotlight.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. Tell us about your favorite part of this episode, and share this video with a friend if you have a playwright, director, actor, anybody in your life that's in the theater that might enjoy this. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And in the meantime, and until we see each other again, keep writing.